Mistakes happen. That's to be expected. But when they happen in a court case of such magnitude that it impacts the futures of millions upon millions of kids over generations, then it's problematic. So I want to show you something that's happened in this latest court case. This is the ruling in the Texas Taxpayer and Student Fairness Coalition litigation that we've just finished up here in Texas. First point, all 9 justices agreed with this ruling, and therefore the things that are in it. And one of the basic frameworks for deciding this issue has not changed since Edgewood 1. That's very important. Basic framework not changed since Edgewood 1. That's the first litigation that we held. And what it is, they held that districts must have, not optional, not should have, but must have substantially equal access to similar revenues per pupil at similar levels of tax effort. And that's on page 69 of this particular opinion. This is also in the opinion. Now this is the second part of a paragraph. The first part has nearly an identical sentence, and it has to do with Lisa Dawn Fisher's data. She represented the state. This part has to do with my response to that, or what they put in to balance with that. And I want to call your attention to a couple of things here. First of all, what we're measuring is M&O revenue per student in weighted ADA, weighted students, for the top and bottom, and notice this, 5% of districts. Now, I want you to look at this number here. That's the average for the top 5%. This is the average for the bottom 5%. And here's the ratio, 1.42, which they said that's good enough. That's similar revenue, a 42% differentiation. But let's go back. You see it right there? 81.46. That's WADA. That's not in 5% of districts. That's in districts with 5% of the WADA. You notice that there's 111 districts in this group. There's your 42% differentiation. Well, let's go to the exhibit that is the correct one. Districts, 5% of districts. You notice there's 51. We have a little over 1,000 districts. Look at that number. Much bigger number. Look at this differentiation. Much larger differentiation. This is what it should have been. $9,021. This changed not a lot, but it did change some, and the ratio is 1.57, a 57% differentiation, not the 1.4 that they said this was just a little more than. That's pretty substantial. So the question is 57% more similar? Let's take it and look at it. This is the top 5% of districts. This is the bottom 5% of districts. And here's the gap per weighted student, which is the way we count students for school finance purposes. Now, in that bottom 5% of districts, it so happens that for 22 children, their average, little over 30 weighted students in this particular group. So if you take the gap per weighted student by the number of weighted students in a classroom, a typical elementary classroom of 22 kids, that's what you get. That is what that differentiation provides per classroom, $98,246. Now, something that they didn't even bring into it, but has to be considered because you have to consider tax effort. Those people on the bottom taxed 11.3 cents higher to pull their kids within $100,000 per classroom. I don't know what definition of similar, $100,000 and having to tax 11.3 cents higher to get there. I don't know what that is. I think you could argue that that's not similar, and the tax rate's not similar. Now, someone may say, well, that's what if they had ruled anyway, that it's going to be 1.4, and they just didn't use that when they saw that it was 57%. Well, let's just go with that. 40% more. We normally have around $6,000 per weighted student in the state. That's 40%, so $24 $2,400 gap. $2,400 gap. 30 watt in the classroom times 2,400, that's $72,000 per classroom, and still at 11.3 higher tax rate. If you bend over backwards and take the worst possible scenario and ignore the evidence in the record, you have to still come up with an allowance of $72,000 per typical elementary classroom at an 11.3 cent higher tax rate. I don't think very many courts would consider that to be similar.
For the latest news and information, make sure you follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, check out our videos on YouTube, or find us on our website, equitycenter.org.